Alright guys, so I'm just down in the workshop today, and today's project is a couple of leather handbags. So I'll give you a look at the template here. These handbags are going to be a pretty simple construction. They are riveted together construction. Okay, I make my templates here out of, that's just a poster board, about 4.5 mm thick, so nice and sturdy, and then I'm just marking directly on the leather as I want to cut it. Let's take a look at the template in a bit of depth. Okay, so let's talk about this template in depth. We can see that it consists of a number of different shapes, but really the template breaks down to just a couple of elements. The whole thing is one big rectangle, okay, and that determines the overall size of the bag. So it'll determine the overall width of the bag, the overall length of the bag, and the length of the flap that sits at the top. Then inside this large rectangle is a smaller rectangle and a triangle. Okay, and the smaller rectangle we can see runs in the side here where these fold lines are, all the way up to the edge of the triangle, and it runs across here and back down again. Okay, so when you're making your template, the overall size is controlled by the larger rectangle, and then the size of the edges that fold together would be the measurement between the outer and the inner rectangle. And then the triangle itself at the top just sits between the center of the larger rectangle and the outside left and right sides of the smaller rectangle. So it's really simple to make a template like this. The one thing that you've got to think about is how wide do I want my bag to be, and with its width, then that'll help me determine how big I need my flap to overhang to be. Okay, so in this case my bag's going to be somewhere around 40 mm wide, so I've got a 50 mm gap here and an 80 mm gap here roughly, but you know, you can play with that to find something that works for you. The other thing you can see is with my template there are these recesses cut out here, and this will actually fold up the construction of the bag, and then when these edges fold up they'll fold in and up and form a box shape for the overall pattern. Now to make these a little less bulky, I've put a 38 mm strap end punch on the edge of that to cut that shape out. And the other thing is I've left, as you'll see on the template, a bit of a gap there, and I've followed that through with the pattern on the leather as well. And the reason for that is because when these edges fold up there's not a lot of material there, and that's actually going to make the bag's width smaller as well when we fold this together. So that's why this is larger than the sides are. Okay, I've left a little bit of extra space there just to allow for the folding and for the bulkiness of the materials to reduce. Just some things to think about when you're making a pattern. Now, when we come to actually cutting this out in leather, you can see I've got my piece marked out here, and right next to that I've got one that I've already started to trim up. Let's move you a little closer now. Okay, so with this one that I've started to trim up, how I did that is you just start with the straight edges and you cut all of those out, the large rectangle sort of shapes. Then we move down and we cut the straight edges along the top of the triangle. And then cut out your straight edges in here, the little recess that determines the width of the bag. Next, we've just got these little details here. So you can see this is quite a quick pattern to cut out as well. So with these details, you could either use something round to do your tip here, like your rubber mallet or something like that. Okay, you could use that to make a nice round edge. Or you could freehand that. And for the insides of these, one trick that I can give you is when you're cutting that out, it can be really hard to determine, especially if you're using something like a scalpel, like one of these. It can be really hard to determine where you've cut and make a nice neat cut there. It can also be really hard to terminate that neatly, because obviously when you're cutting in those fine areas, you're going to have all these little fuzzy bits left over, and the leather's quite thick. So if you want to make sure you're cutting a nice straight neat termination point, then a really simple way to do that is terminate it with a hole punch. So I'll use a smaller size punch than this one, but go in and punch that out, and then you'll have a nice hole there that you can cut some straight lines from. So I'm going to cut that out, and then we'll show you what the bag's starting to look like. Okay guys, so here we can see I've just put my hole punches through these little intersecting points here and created a nice termination there. So now all we need to do is cut some straight lines. Okay, so we'll just use a normal ruler, find the outside point of our line that we need to cut. Go ahead and slice that. Alright, do the same on the other side here, find the outside point of the line and slice it. Alright, super simple. Now we have a nice little flap there. And then I can cut this out. Now I've got two options for that. I can cut it by hand, or I can cut it using a strap end punch, which is what I've designed this for. I'm just going to cheat right now because I am filming. Line that over my template there and punch it out. There we go. Done. Alright. Now let's talk about how this thing sits together. Good girl. Go lie down. Go lie down. Good girl. Alright, so this is the basic bag. You can see that the edges fold up like this, here and here. And this edge folds up as well. So to put that together, it's a pretty simple case. Fold that tab up, fold one side in, and the other side as well. Now I like to fold it up from the back side first, and then the front. And then when they pinch together, which I'll just put there for you, you get a nice square shape. Also, what we do while the bag is still like this is we look at the front section and where we want to put our closure, and also if we're going to put some sort of logo on it, we would put that on here as well. On the top section, we're going to put a concho, like one of these, which I got from Tandy Leather. So we put a concho on there like that. but we can do this afterwards. So that's our next step, is to think about where this edge is folding in, and where we'd want our logo to sit, and where we want our hole to be positioned for any fittings that we're using. In this case, I'm going to use a 4-strand braided cord, which I'll use with a knot on the inside, and I'll use it to tie around a concho, which I'll put on the front. Let's mark that out. So to do that, we need to figure out what the middle of the bag is. Now I've got this bag at 32 centimeters, which is 320 millimeters. So that means smack bang in the middle is 16 millimeters. So that's around about where I'd want my hole punch to go. And I just need to figure out how high or low on the bag I want that to be. And I'm thinking somewhere, I've got my lid coming down around about there, and I would want that sitting a little bit lower, so towards the very bottom of the bag. I don't of course want it right on the bottom of the bag though, so somewhere around about there. So I'll find that point 16 centimeters in and make a hole punch. Just note that I'm using a black texture so you guys can see what I'm doing as well. Normally I wouldn't use that on a product that I'm finishing. There we go. So that's where that's going to go. Very close to the bottom, but that's okay. And then we'll put our logo down here as well. Okay, so here we go guys, we got our 2 bags cut out, 1, 2, and I've put my logo on them as well. The wedgetail, just sewn on with my sewing machine. So what's important to remember is the orientation of the bag. In this case, this is the front of the bag, which means when we fold it together, you want your logo facing up. Like that, see? Don't put them on upside down like I almost did the first time. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a 4-strand braided cord, which we're going to use to put through here as a tie down point with a concho. So for that, let's go ahead and start making a 4-strand braided cord. I'll show you how to do that now as well. Okay guys, we're going to start making the cord now, so all I'm going to do for that, and I've set this up for your demonstration purposes only. Normally I don't put nails in my bench top. I've got another system that I hang on the wall, just a nail that I put in the wall somewhere that I'll use for this process. But what I'm taking is some kangaroo lacing here, and I'm just going to cut 2 lengths at about 24 inches. So one there. Alrighty. That was awkward. So 2 at 24, or roughly 60 centimeters. I'll put those together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just slide a bead here. This is just a simple wooden bead. I got it from the craft store, a whole pile of them for next to nothing. And we just slide that. We're going to find about the middle point, so move that down. And about there. Okay, so we found the middle point. I've just got myself a little clip here, bulldog clip. clip that over the end of that and put it on my nail. Now what I've got is a working surface to start creating my braided cord from. Let's zoom you in and we'll start doing that. I'm going to take my outside cord, I'm going to pass it flesh side up underneath my two inside pieces, up in between my other outside piece, and then I'm going to fold it over so that it's flesh side out again and come down in between what were my two inside pieces. That's my first braid. Now I'll keep doing that with alternating outside pieces. So I'll take my other outside piece, pass it down flesh side up, between my middle inside piece and my other outer piece, and then I'll fold it flesh side down over the top of my inside piece. And now we'll repeat that again with the outside piece, flesh side up between the two left side pieces, and then fold it over flesh side down over the next inside piece. And that's starting to make my braid. Now, just because I've just started, I'm going to work all of that up towards the top. Just by sliding everything up. We've got the makings of our first couple of braids. There we go. Everything is working its way up towards the top, firmly. Alright, now the last one that I did was from the right hand side, so the next one that I do will be my left side outside piece, fold it flesh side up between my two right side outside pieces, and then fold it back flesh side down, so turn it to flesh side down over the top, which it doesn't want to do for me. Why not? Just got a bit of tension on there, that's why. There we go. Okay, so if we take this off now, we can see roughly what that's starting to look like. Got a little bit more tightening to do here. I've got to pull this a little tighter up towards the top. And I'll keep doing that, and then I'll return and show you guys what's happening. Alright guys, so the next step in our project here, we've cut the pattern out, sewn our logo on if we're going to do one of those, and created a 4-strand round braid closure. So the next step in the process here is we're going to fold the bag up and do the 2 bottom corners. And to do that, it's pretty straightforward. Flip the bag over. We're going to lift a corner up. Now we want to fold the bag so that the back piece comes up first. I'm going to lift that corner in. And we want that to come just so that it sort of runs up in line with the opposite corner. I'm going to fold it all down nice and neatly. Then we'll take the front side, we'll fold that over as well. And what you'll end up with is a pretty nice, neat looking little corner down in there. Obviously a little bit neater when I'm using 2 hands. You can see the bags form sort of a cone shape when I do that. And so what you're going to want to do is get a cutting surface, something like that. You're going to want to jam it right down into that corner so that when you do your first hole punch in there, you'll go into the board, not through the bottom side of your leather. So I will do that, and I'll come back when both of these two corners are punched and show you what they look like. Apologies for switching to a different camera. The other one I had ran out of batteries. Apparently they're dying. First corners are in. So you can see how they're just folded together. And if we take a look inside the bag, just fold it open, you can see the internal there. So we've got our flap, little tab, and you've got the back piece and the front piece over the top of that. Okay, so pretty straightforward on how to rivet those together. Just for a bit of guidance, I used a touch of glue just to help it sort of tack together while you line everything up. And then of course just hole punch and go to town. So all that's left now is we need to fit some straps. So to do that, you can see I'll line the sides up so that the tabs overlap, and I'll hole punch the strap directly in, so rivet the straps directly in as well. Now the size of this bag, it works out rivet about every 2 inches, in the center every 2 inches, up to 5 inches. I think that's what it is. Now as for the straps, here are some I prepared earlier. I've cut a length here and a length here with a buckle to make them adjustable. And that's a pretty straightforward buckle to make. Same as this one here for the other bag. All I have here is a Conway buckle. Okay. And you can see I've just used a screw punch and riveted that together as well. I skived the end of this so that it sat a little bit flatter. And you can see all of the ends I've tipped with a strap end punch as well. So that's how those will sit. Just riveted down about every 2 inches. Or the first inch, 2 inches, 2 inches. On both sides, and then on the end of one of these belts, I'll put a bunch of holes to slot into the Conway buckle, and that way your bag can be adjustable, so you could have it as a crossbody or over the shoulder. I'll come back when I start doing some more of that. So just for anybody who's interested as well, the length of the belts that I've cut here are 20 inches for the short ones with the Conway buckles, and 50 inches for the longer belt straps. Now the reason that I've done that is that each has 5 inches for attaching to the bag. So I've got 70 inches worth of straps there, but 10 inches of that is for attaching to the bag, so there's 60 inches worth of strap. Then I have 2 inches of turn back, so that's 58 inches total now. And then on the belt end, you're going to have a bit of an overhang as well. Let's say that's 2 inches. So that becomes 56 inches to the first hole. So that gives you a range then of 56 inches to, I don't know, maybe around 50 inches for total length of the entire belt strap. Alright guys, so here we go. Got the 2 bags that I'm working on now. You can see that I've riveted up the sides, both sides. And the last step there is just hole punching a couple of holes into the strap end. So I've just done this 3 inches in and at 1 inch spacing for each hole. I did 6 holes. Pretty easy to space them out as well. Just grab yourself a pair of wing dividers, and you just use this to walk along. So if I wanted to cut a hole here, then my next hole there, then my next hole, I just walk that along. And that gives me 1 inch spacing between each hole. Okay, so the next step is to fit that into the Conway buckle. Now these are pretty straightforward, but I'll show you how they work anyway. We have one Conway buckle, and what we do is we feed, just let that sit here, we feed one end through the buckle. We snake it down a little bit. Okay, and then we feed the other end through the other part of the Conway buckle here. Now, whichever hole you let it rest on, let's just push that through. There we go. Doing this one-handed is always tricky. Now, whichever hole you let this rest on with the pin in the middle is the setting that it'll be at. So, in this case, look at that, found it smack dab in the middle. A little bit more. Schmeh. You get the point. There we go. Alright, so now when you lift that up, you have a nice little bag starting to form. And our buckle is just like that. Very good. So now, the last step, until we finish these bags off, is to put our concho on. So for that, I want to find dead center of this point here. So I'll use my ruler to do that. How wide did we end up at this bit? Remembering that our cut can actually differ from the pattern slightly. I've got that at about 245, 250 millimeters. We'll say that's 250 millimeters. I'll pull it to the right. 250 millimeters. So what I want to do is find a way to line this up with something square here and here. And then if my distance was 250 millimeters, then I need to come in 125 millimeters, and then about 2 inches up, or 50 millimeters up. And that's where I'll place a hole for my concho. Let's do that. So there we go. In this example, we just drew the side here along the straight edge on the guide mat. And then we were able to take a measurement 12.5 centimeters in, 125 millimeters. Just place a dot, and we checked as well that it's also about 500 millimeters from the tip of the lid there. So, okay guys, well, it's a few days after completing that last video. Technology was really not working in my favor. I ran out of batteries, I ran out of data, and wasn't able to do a final closing video on the night that I was winding up that project. But here it is for you to have a look at. The last thing that I was doing was placing a hole for the concho, and those conchos are pretty simply just a screw post with a concho on top. I use a little bit of super glue to make them stay shut. But we can see this is what the bags look like. You have a look at the sides of the bag here. You can see it forms a nice squarish shape. You can see the reason why I like to use the front of the bag as the last piece to close, is so that you get this lip at the back of the bag rather than at the front. This lip here. we can see the construction of the bag is very simply riveted together. You can see what it looks like inside for you there as well. So it's a really easy project, I think, to make, and obviously to close the bag up we just take our braid here and you can wrap it around your concho there. The firmer leather you have, the stiffer it would be, obviously, but this leather here is a chrome tanned leather of some description, around 2.5, 2.6 millimeters thick. It's very nice and soft, and it has a fairly neat edge when it's cut, actually, so I'm pretty happy with that. The straps are vegetable tanned. They are the Austin double shoulders from Tandy, around about 3 millimeters, I think they are, thickness. Skive to half thickness at the turn back for the buckle here. So, let me know what you think. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you got some value out of it. If you would like more videos like this, go ahead and let me know in the comment section down below, and also subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.